Welcome to the 11th episode of Why It's Awesome, the spoiler-free show where we attempt to take something often easily dismissed and explain why maybe you should give it a shot. The intention with this series is to help new fans find something they'll enjoy that initially they might have passed over, or so that people who are already fans can pass this video on to their friends to persuade them to give the subject in question a go. This week, I'll be looking at a request we've gotten over a couple of videos, Hannibal. Based on characters from the novel Red Dragon by Thomas Harris, Hannibal is a psychological thriller horror television series about how FBI profiler Will Graham and his boss Jack Crawford slowly come to realise that the respected psychiatrist Hannibal Lecter might actually be a cannibalistic sociopathic serial killer. It ran for 3 seasons on NBC between 2013 and 2015, and it is fantastic. However, before we get to that, let's start, as we always do, with what could be some common reasons for dismissal. I know those that have dismissed the show because they don't have any interest in Hannibal Lecter, or have already seen other Hannibal Lecter media and don't wish to see any more. At first glance, the show may seem like just another criminal procedural or a serial killer drama in a market that is saturated by them, and those that actually get around to watching Hannibal may find problems with the level of violent imagery the show will regularly present. Obviously, with a show called Hannibal, there is going to be a lot of immediate and continuous association with every other piece of Hannibal Lecter content out there, so if you have no interest in Hannibal Lecter, it's understandable that you may dismiss this show outright as not for you. Likewise, if you have consumed various other pieces of content about Hannibal Lecter, you may have some reasonable assumed preconceptions about this version, and because of that, you're not interested in it. So, the first big point I want to get across to people who have this thought process about Hannibal is that the way this show is presented is nothing like any other Hannibal Lecter content you may have seen or heard about, not only through its incredible visual style, which I hope you can appreciate based on what you're currently seeing, but in how it presents Lecter himself. In most other Hannibal-based media, Lecter is already locked up for his crimes as a cannibalistic serial killer, and the story follows somebody else as they interact with Lecter, usually behind bars. The genius of Hannibal, however, is that it starts the story off before any of that happens, so we get to see Lecter as a practicing psychiatrist and a practicing cannibal. Bryan Fuller honours the mythology of Hannibal while putting his own spin on it. But maybe you've seen some of the show, and this new spin just looks like another criminal procedural or a serial killer drama. And yes, I agree that probably the last thing television needs is more criminal procedurals or serial killer dramas. However, to label Hannibal as just one of those shows is to do it a grave injustice. Hannibal is focused far more on its characters than the actual crime. Although yes, Hannibal does start off as a criminal procedural with a rough case of the week structure, but it's a lot more complex than that description implies. Will Graham is indeed attempting to track down numerous serial killers with the help of Hannibal Lecter. However, while we know about Lecter's true nature, we don't know what his actual agenda is in any given scene, whether he's actually helping to locate the serial killers, or if he's helping the serial killers himself, or if he's just bored and is messing with people just to see what happens. Add to that a focus not on the crimes themselves, but the effect investigating these kind of horrific crimes psychologically has on a mind, and you've got yourself a far smarter, more engaging show than it first appears. It's also worth mentioning that the procedural nature of the show is there as a familiar crutch at the beginning to introduce you to the show and how it tells its stories. When the show ramps up for season 2 and 3, Hannibal abandons this structure in favour of delving deeper into its characters and what they are all experiencing. Okay, so by now, hopefully you're giving Hannibal a bit more thought. Maybe there is more to it than first meets the eye. I should check it out. Well, I'm loving your enthusiasm, but let me just take a couple more minutes of your time because you should know Hannibal is a dark, dark show. Hannibal has an awe-inspiring, stunning visual style that I believe is unmatched anywhere else. However, that visual style is based around horrifying graphic murder. Bryan Fuller has stated in interviews that the more real a murder is, the less interested I am in seeing it. So, where in more typical shows of this nature you have fetishized scenes of victims being killed, here you have an operatic, almost poetic quality to the murders. The murders are so much larger than life and removed from reality that they don't so much feel like crime, as they do dark, twisted, haunted works of art. But make no mistake about it, the show doesn't shy away from showing you this. I can only talk about my own personal experience, but this is not a show I have the stomach to binge watch. Hannibal is a hauntingly beautiful show. The cinematography, sound design, the actors' performances, everything lends itself together to make this a masterfully crafted, compelling piece of television. But there has been many occasions where this show has just gotten too much for me and I've had to come back to it later. As just one example of this for you in Season 1, there is a killer that uses the bodies of his victims to grow mushrooms on, which may not sound too disturbing in theory, but let me assure you that there is something quite nightmarish about seeing a corpse that is more fungus than human. If this all sounds a bit too much for you, then maybe Hannibal isn't the show for you. But initially, I thought that as well. The first few episodes got pretty disturbing for me, then episode 5 hit and I spent the entire episode going back and forth between being completely horrified and completely stunned because of how amazing everything looked. Ultimately, I kept coming back. The story and the characters were just too good for me not to eventually give in and slowly get over my initial aversion to the graphic visuals. The show succeeds in delivering genuinely tense horror, shocking surprises, and master-crafted mystery-based storytelling. Surround that with stellar performances by all of the leads. Seriously, I do not think there is one bad performance in the entire run of the show. Add a visual style that has set the new benchmark for how TV shows are presented, and an atmosphere that perfectly encapsulates the show, and you have one of the best television shows out there. So why not give this one a shot? It would be rude not to, after all. And that's it for another episode. What did you guys think? Did you enjoy this video? Let me know with a like, and if you'd like to see more, feel free to hit that subscribe button. Is there something that you love that other people just don't seem to get that you might want me to look into and make a video about? Let me know in the comments. And of course, do you guys like Hannibal? Do you dislike it, and why? What is it about the show that makes you feel that way? Leave a comment to start a discussion. And as always, I'll see you next time.